Stewart-Haas Racing's time in NASCAR may be numbered. NASCAR releases the 2025 Hall of Fame class, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. be ready because RC got some fighting words for you. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jett. Welcome back to an episode of Inside Alliance. Hope you're having a wonderful morning. Man, we got a few stories to talk about here. Some spicy stuff to talk about in the world of NASCAR, both on and off the racetrack. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. We're going to first start off with the ratings that came out following the All-Star race. Now, let's be honest, it was an improvement, but it was still very lackluster. The fight was the only thing that really got people talking. I highly doubt many people even know who actually won the race, that being Joey Logano, but still, the fans showed up. So FS1 got 2.573 million viewers for Sunday's NASCAR All-Star race, which is up 17% from last year at 2.203 and up from 2.481 million the year prior. Simply put, it was the most watched All-Star race since 2021. And interesting with this top 5 markets, not surprised to see Greensboro and Charlotte, but Indy ranked third at a 2.9. Now this is interesting considering NBC also posted that they got 1.145 million viewers for the Indy 500 qualifying session, just TV only, which is up 35% from 842,000 the year prior. More than likely, that is the Kyle Larson effect. Obviously, since the month of May has began, Kyle Larson has been probably the most talked about driver in America, with him doing the double, the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 scheduled to take place next Sunday, or I should say this Sunday actually. Very excited to see that, and obviously it's got the whole racing world talking. I know I was one of them that was flipping through channels, staying on NBC, seeing the whole Indy 500 qualifying session, then moving over to the All-Star race. So I'm not surprised to see others follow that same tactic. And I just got to say this with the Indy 500 qualifying before we move on. It is possibly the greatest qualifying session for a race in history. I mean, just the intensity, the hype, everything about Indy 500 qualifying makes it almost as big as the actual race, maybe if not bigger, because man, the Fast 12, the Firestone Fast 12 and the Last Chance qualifier just made Indy qualifying such a huge and exciting deal. And honestly, I think it's something that NASCAR should replicate with this Daytona 500. But anyways, that's for future time to talk about this. When discussing for this week's Coke 600, won't be surprised to, at the very least, won't be surprised to see an uptick in viewership for both NBC and Fox with their respective races, depending on if we get the race in time, because I believe there is weather as expected to impact the area at Indianapolis on Sunday, which, of course, anything good happens. Anytime NASCAR touches anything, rain comes, but hopefully no rain's affecting this weekend. Hopefully both races can get on time, and if so, it will be a humongous day for racing. Next up, we got the fight that's being talked about around the NASCAR world, even outside the NASCAR world. Pat McAfee discussed it on the Pat McAfee show about the fight between Stenhouse and Busch. Man, looks like this thing may not be over yet. Now, near the end of that whole scuffle, Stenhouse said, "I'm gonna wreck you at Charlotte." Kyle Busch responded with a very famous line by saying, "I don't give a blank, I suck just as much as you do," which is funny because the next day or the next couple of days on the Stacking Pennies podcast, Stenhouse said that he's moved on from that incident.
I told him I might crash him at Charlotte. I'm not going to crash him at Charlotte. Then that just keeps it going, right? Yeah. So, as far as my end goes, I feel like, I'm past it.
But Kyle Busch's car owner, Richard Childress, he has other things in his mind. Now, he was at a charitable event with the Tots for Toys, partnering up with Austin Dillon in that 3 car for this year. And when asked about Ricky Stenhouse Jr., RC had some fighting words and gave Stenhouse a warning.
Yeah, I mean, I would have jumped right in the middle of it.
And done what?
Well, I was started fighting. I don't fight as fair as I used to. I'm a little older. But Ricky Stenhouse said that he was going to wreck the 8 car at Charlotte. Well, when I see him, I'm going to tell him, if he does, I'm older, but I've just changed my style of fight. He'll carry a rough ass beat.
It's kind of funny how life works sometimes, because Stenhouse said, he'll have Richard hold his watch, which is obviously a callback to, I think, what happened in 2011 at Kansas, when Kyle Busch got into it with RCR driver Joey Coulter in the Truck Series, and then RC punched Kyle Busch. So, very funny. 2011, RC was despised Kyle Busch and vice versa, to now RC backing Kyle Busch to go after Stenhouse. I know, obviously, because, Busch is RC's driver, so of course RC is going to back his guy, but I just find it funny how life works, that you went from hating this guy, putting him in a headlock and punching him, to now, I'm going to fight with you, bro. We going to knock his ass out. Thing is with RC, that man says what he means and means what he says. So if, he said he may as well adjust his fighting style, even though he's got a little bit older, I would not be surprised. In fact, I would love to see RC throw some hands at Stenhouse. I think it would just be cool to see. More than likely, he would get knocked out from Stenhouse just because Stenhouse is younger, probably more quicker, but it would be cool to see RC put up a fight with him. Oh my God. RC, Richard Childress versus Ricky Stenhouse Sr. And on top of that, because Celebrity Boxing match reached out to Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse to settle it, you have a perfect tag team. Kyle Busch, RC versus Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Sr. Book it! Okay, a bit of an update. I just woke up and I look absolutely trash, so that's why you're not seeing my face. But NASCAR has just issued penalties following Sunday's fight, and it is ridiculous. So they have fined Ricky Stenhouse Jr. $75,000 and suspended 2 crew members from the number 47 team. Team mechanic Clint Myrick has been suspended for the next 8 Cup Series races, and tuner Keith Matthews suspended for the next 4 Cup Series races. Now, Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer said on Wednesday that I think it's fair to say that when you have crew members and family members that put their hands on our drivers, we're going to react. There's not a lot of detail I'm going to get into due to the fact that these are appealable penalties, and I want to make sure that we're fair to that process. With that being said, and we've been consistent about this, when crew members and family members get involved, we are going to react. That's exactly what we did. And on top of that, of those suspensions to those 2 crew members, they have indefinitely suspended Ricky Stenhouse Sr. Now, I actually agree with NASCAR on those things. They have been consistent with fining crew members for this and family members. I remember an incident where I think Max Keen's wife slapped Max Pappas, and NASCAR definitely suspended her back in 2013 or around that era. So they have been consistent about this. So I have no issue with those penalties. However, I do have an issue with them fining Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And it's less because of the fact that they're going to promote it, even though, when you look at social media, the social media department and the NASCAR sanctioning body department are 2 completely different things. I do know for a fact that when NASCAR is promoting next week's commercial, which NASCAR, the sanctioning body, has, the final approval of, they will use that fight. They will use that fight to promote next week's race. I don't blame them so much for the social media department because it happened very fast. It happened quickly. It was instantaneous. It was a reactive thing to post. But for next week's race promoting, I think it's Gateway, the next race following the Coke 600 or whatever the next race is, there should not be a single frame of that fight if you're going to find him. On top of that, it is inconsistent. When you take a look at, I believe, 1 or 2 years ago, this moment in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Martinsville Speedway, and Austin Hill, who sucker punched Myatt Snider dead in the face, square in the face. I believe this was worse than what Stenhouse did to Busch, and yet Austin Hill was not suspended or fined, had no penalties whatsoever. Now, I believe the reason why maybe they fined Sawyer was because Stenhouse said it, that this was premeditated. Sawyer said that when you have to wait 198 laps and you make those decisions that were made, again, we're going to react to that. Once we get to the point where it gets physical, we want the 2 drivers to be able to have the time to express their differences. Once it escalates to a physical altercation, we're going to react. Again, this is BS, Sawyer. The reason why I think this is BS is because, like you said, 198 laps he had to wait. That means there could have been officials or people there to de-escalate the situation before it got to that point. Why was no official standing next to Stenhouse when he was waiting at Kyle Busch's hauler? Why was there no official already in the middle of that? That could have already de-escalated the situation. It didn't need to get to that point, especially when you had 198 laps to de-escalate. You have security, you have officials that are there. Why didn't you do anything to prevent this? In my opinion, NASCAR has some blame in this because it didn't need to get to that point. If you had 198 98 laps, meaning a couple hours to de-escalate, to have officials go there, to talk to Stenhouse about, hey, maybe don't do this or maybe don't do that. This whole thing could have been avoided, but no, NASCAR officials didn't do anything. And Stenhouse said that he was going to do something about it. Of course, you knew that it was going to be physical. So this fining Stenhouse makes absolutely zero sense. When you look in terms of past examples, I know people bring up the 1979 500 and how both drivers were fined, but that was a different NASCAR. In today's NASCAR, there have been fights, there have been things that involved physical altercation, and NASCAR did not penalize. Hell, I'll even bring up another one, Kyle Busch and Joey Logano in Vegas in 2017, where Kyle Busch kind of did similar to what Stenhouse did to Busch, went up and bam, punched Logano. May not have connected, but he still swung, he tried to hit him, and yet Kyle Busch was not fined anything. So again, it makes no sense and it's inconsistent when you look at NASCAR and how they deal with physical altercation involving drivers. Now, the crew members and family members, they've been consistent with that. I have no problem with that. But NASCAR fining Stenhouse $75,000 is flat out ridiculous. And don't get me started, I'm not even going to entertain the thought of people saying that Kyle Busch should be fined. Like I saw someone that said that what happened at Charlotte last year between Hamlin and Elliott is in some way comparable to what happened this time between Busch and Stenhouse. It is absolutely not. Right hooking a guy at 150, 60 some odd miles per hour is nothing compared to running at 70, 80 miles per hour and hitting someone in the left rear at a short track. It is not comparable. If you make this comparison, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot because you cannot compare those two incidents. One is very low speeds on a short track and it's at the left rear. So, he could have spun out, not hit anything, things like that. When you right hook a guy at 150, 60 miles per hour, when you know that doing that is going to make the driver hit the wall head on, that is two completely different situations. So comparing the two makes absolutely no sense. Kyle Busch should not have been fined or suspended, should have no penalties, but also Ricky Stenhouse should also have not been fined. Anyways, that'll be fun to see what happens this weekend at Charlotte, but we're going to end it off with Stewart-Haas Racing. And there have been constant rumors for years now about the future of that race team, and it looks like its days might be numbered. According to Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journals, industry sources expect in a few weeks Stewart-Haas Racing to announce the selling of their charters. Now, it could be as little as 2, or it may be up to the full-size Cup team. They're just selling all of it. In the article, it says that due to the uncertainty around SHR, some of its drivers and their agents have started reaching out to other teams about options for next year in case they lose their seat, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. Now, this is interesting because with this, also things started to rumble about, well, if they're going to be selling, how much would they be selling for? Remember, they were getting up to as high as $40 million reported when Live Fast Motorsports sold its charter 1 or 2 years ago. So with now the possibility that SHR may release all 4 charters, that price, which was said to be rising, may stagnate. It says in the article that NASCAR charter prices have been on an upward trend the last several years, but that March could be halted, at least temporarily, if SHR unloads several of them over the coming weeks as expected. With the possibility of selling all 4 charters, supply has shot up in the charter market at the same time that teams have yet to strike a new revenue sharing agreement with NASCAR. Those factors are depressing prices, at least temporarily, sources said, as each could be sold for $20 to $30 million apiece. Now, of course, with the possibility of 4 charters being sold, there is that thing. Now, of course, with the possibility of 4 charters, up to 4 charters being sold, rumors swirling around as to who would take those charters. You look at Front Row Motorsports, that are trying to elevate their Cup team and enhance their Ford partnership program. Obviously acquiring those charters and probably maybe even acquiring the SHR drivers of Barry, Briscoe, Priest, Gregson, or one of those 4 drivers possibility. Won't be surprised if that's something that Front Row is trying to chase. Also look at maybe 2311 Racing. They have also been rumored to maybe be looking at a 3rd charter. And also Trackhouse, considering that they have more drivers and cars signed on, and with Zane Smith not having a ride next year, because technically he is on loan to Spire Motorsports from Trackhouse. So obviously with him not having a ride, getting a 3rd charter would make sense for Trackhouse, and especially with them also signing Shane Van Gisbergen, maybe they could get 2 charters for their now possibly 4 driver fleet. But again, this is all just rumors swirling around. But a lot of people that have been saying, and some people have been saying it's been spot off, that they don't believe in the SHR rumors. I think it's true. I think SHR's days in the Cup Series, maybe at the very least, are numbered, because rumors have been swirling around like this. They've been going around since maybe 2020, 2021. This isn't new. This isn't like out of the blue. This has been happening for quite some time with SHR. And I think really the downfall, I want to say around that started in 2020, because Tony Stewart wanted Kyle Larson. Ford didn't allow that. Understandable, because of what was happening with Larson in 2020. I don't think I need to explain it. You already know the deal. And Stewart was very, very open about how he tried to get Larson. And it seemed that after that, as soon as that never happened, things started to go a bit downhill. 2020 was really the last year SHR showed real speed after Harvick crashed at Martinsville. It's been going downhill ever since. 2021, they only won 1 race with Eric Almirola. On top of that, when you look at the sponsors that have left SHR, like Hunt Brothers Pizza, Busch, Gear Wrench. I mean, Stewart-Haas has lost tens of millions of dollars in sponsorship in the last couple seasons, especially since Harvick's departure. Smithfield is another one that also left. Tens of millions of sponsorships that SHR has lost. And on top of that, you look at possibly the feelings of the owners. Tony Stewart has been very expressive about his feelings of NASCAR in recent situations. A couple of years ago at the Charlotte Roval, when there was that whole penalties regarding race fixing between Custer and Briscoe, Stewart said that he was furious with NASCAR, didn't want to deal with them, didn't want to talk to them, didn't want to do anything with them, wanted to focus on drag racing and NHRA. Gene Haas, who I don't think has really ever been on board NASCAR for quite some time, especially nowadays with Formula One and the popularity that has surged there, and the amount of money that the Haas F1 team has been bringing in now because of F1 surge in popularity. I won't be surprised if Gene put all of his eggs into that basket, and with Tony Stewart and his NHRA program growing and him being very open into participating to more and more NHRA races, being a full-time driver now, he's probably putting all his eggs into the drag racing department. So you have 2 owners that both are having, both are being very focused on completely different avenues that don't involve NASCAR. Again, I mean, I think this may be SHR's final year in NASCAR, at the very least in the Cup Series. I don't know. There's too many things been going around to say otherwise. But those are my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on what do you think is going to happen with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2025 and beyond? And what do you think is going to happen to the drivers and the people that work at SHR? I feel bad for them, because if they do close, that's a lot of people that are going to be without jobs. So if it does close, hopefully those teams or the people, the drivers, are able to find something for 2025 and beyond. But yeah, again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on not only that story, but any of the stories I talked about. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see y'all next time.